I still remember the night the door appeared. It was an unassuming Tuesday, the kind that fades into memory like a forgotten photograph. I was walking home from my late shift at the diner when I saw it, an otherworldly shimmer at the edge of the woods near Old Creek Road. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, a trick of moonlight or the reflection of headlights. But as I drew closer, the shimmering grew stronger, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. It wasn't just a door. It was the door. 7 feet tall. Its surface seemed to ripple like liquid gold. But when I reached out to touch it, the texture felt cold and solid, like metal forged in ice. There was no frame, no hinges, just a freestanding doorway radiating an aura of quiet menace. My instincts screamed at me to turn away, but curiosity has always been my fatal flaw. I stood there for what felt like hours, debating whether to step closer or call someone. Who would I even call? The police? They'd laugh me off as a drunk or a lunatic. I told myself I'd leave, but my feet remained rooted. Before I realized what I was doing, I reached out again, and this time, my hand didn't stop at the surface. It passed through the golden shimmer, and a cold so intense it burned shot through my fingertips. Pulling my hand back, I noticed something odd. My skin had turned pale, almost translucent, and a faint glow lingered around my fingertips. Panic set in, but as I stepped away, the door seemed to call me back, not with sound, but with a pull I felt deep in my chest. The next day, I told myself it was a dream, some bizarre hallucination caused by exhaustion. But when I returned to the spot after work, the door was still there, shimmering in the moonlight. This time, I wasn't alone. A boy no older than 12 stood a few feet away, staring at the door with wide, unblinking eyes. "Did you see it, too?" I asked, my voice breaking the silence. He nodded without looking at me, his gaze fixed on the door. "It's calling them," he whispered. "Calling who?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer to the door, his small hands trembling as he reached out. I shouted for him to stop, but it was too late. The moment his fingers touched the shimmer, the door flared brighter than the sun, forcing me to shield my eyes. When the light faded, the boy was gone. I stood there, my heart pounding, my mind racing with questions. Where had he gone? Was he alive? I didn't dare approach the door again that night, but sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the boy's face, his expression a mixture of fear and resignation. Over the next few days, rumors spread like wildfire. More people claimed to have seen the door, each describing the same shimmering portal. Some said it was a gateway to paradise, others a trap laid by malevolent forces. Despite the warnings, more people began to disappear, always at night, always near the door. By the end of the week, the town was in chaos. Those who'd lost loved ones camped near the woods, hoping for their return. Others formed search parties, though none dared to step through the portal. And then there were those, like me, who couldn't shake the feeling that the door wasn't just a mystery, it was a test. The turning point came when I found a journal near the door, half buried in the dirt. It belonged to a man named Elias Whitaker, a local historian known for his obsession with the supernatural. Flipping through the pages, I discovered entries detailing his theories about the door. He believed it was a passage to a parallel world, a mirror of our own, but with one crucial difference. Our darkest desires and fears were given form there. The last entry chilled me to the bone. I've seen it. The other side. If you step through, you won't return the same, or at all. The door takes what you hold most dear and twists it. Beware. I slammed the journal shut, my hands trembling. The warning was clear, yet the pull of the door had only grown stronger. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something deeper, something primal. It felt as if the door knew me, knew my fears, my regrets, my secrets. That night, I made my decision. I would go through the door, not for answers, not for adventure, but for closure. I needed to know what had happened to the boy, to the others, but most of all, I needed to confront the part of me that couldn't let go. I returned to the woods, my heart racing with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The air was colder than usual, and the trees seemed to lean in, their branches casting long, twisted shadows under the pale moonlight. The door stood there, unwavering, its golden shimmer beckoning like a siren's call. I clutched Elias's journal tightly, as if it could somehow protect me from whatever lay on the other side. Taking a deep breath, I reached out once more. My hand trembled as it pierced the shimmering surface, and this time, I didn't pull back. The cold that had burned my fingertips before now enveloped my entire body, sending a jolt through me as if I'd been struck by lightning. The world around me dissolved into a blur of light and sound, and for a moment, I was weightless. When the light faded, I found myself standing in a world both familiar and alien. The woods were still there, but the trees seemed taller, their bark black as charcoal, and their leaves a deep, unnatural red. The air was heavy with a metallic tang, and a low hum resonated in the distance, like the murmur of an unseen crowd. I wasn't alone. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, moving just out of reach. At first, I thought they were people, but as one stepped into the light, I realized they were not human. Their forms were distorted, like reflections in a shattered mirror. Their faces were blank, save for eyes that glowed faintly, watching me with an unsettling intensity. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, though I wasn't sure they could understand me. One of the figures tilted its head, as if puzzled by my presence. Then, without warning, it spoke, not with words, but with a voice that echoed in my mind. "You do not belong here." The words sent a shiver down my spine. Before I could respond, the figure pointed behind me. Turning, I saw the boy from the other night. He stood a few feet away, his eyes wide with terror. His lips moved, but no sound came out. I called out to him, but he didn't seem to hear me. I started toward him, but the moment I moved, the shadows closed in. They formed a barrier between us, their blank faces turning toward me in unison. Panic set in as I realized I was trapped. The journal slipped from my grasp, landing with a thud that seemed impossibly loud in the oppressive silence. The boy reached out, his hand trembling as he pointed to something behind me. Slowly, I turned, and there it was. Another door, identical to the one I had entered, but radiating an entirely different energy. This door pulsed with a dark, foreboding light, as if it were alive. A voice echoed in my mind once again, but this time it wasn't the shadows. It was something else, something ancient and powerful. "Choose wisely." I didn't understand. Choose what? There were only two options, the door I came through or the new one that had appeared. But as I glanced back at the boy, I realized the choice wasn't mine alone. His eyes pleaded with me, begging for help, and in that moment, I knew I couldn't leave him behind. Gathering my courage, I stepped forward, closer to the boy. The shadows tightened their circle, their forms becoming more solid, more menacing. My heart pounded as I reached out, my hand brushing against the boy's shoulder. The instant we made contact, a surge of energy exploded around us, sending the shadows recoiling with ear-piercing shrieks. The boy clung to me, his small frame trembling as tears streamed down his face. "We have to go," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the growing hum that now surrounded us. I turned back to the first door, the one I'd entered through. It was dimmer now, its golden shimmer fading as if it were losing strength. The second door, however, burned brighter, its dark light pulsating like a heartbeat. The hum grew louder, more insistent, and I felt the ground beneath us begin to tremble. "Run!" the boy shouted, pulling me toward the golden door. But something held me back. A force I couldn't see but felt deep in my chest, pulling me toward the dark door. It was as if the world itself wanted me to choose the unknown, to embrace whatever lay on the other side.